soul of Detroit.
A new series of true crime stories taken from the records and newspapers of every land, from every time. Your host each week, Mr.
ML Elric.
Connoisseur of crime, student of violence, and teller of murder.
You asked it around your country around my face. It's gone.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Come on.
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now?
Hey, kids, it's your old pal, ML Elric, and I am a student of violence, kind of like Bob Odenkirk in the Nobody movies. You see me on a bus, it's like some old guy, I'll jack him around a little bit. Next thing you know, got you in a wrist lock, busted a couple of your ribs, you're bleeding from the head and
you're
ears.
Such a hero.
Well, you know, heroes never really brag about it, Mark. I'm just letting people know that if they need help, that I am
okay.
I am available. And we're joined by another hero, someone who's been a hero in journalism, in labor, and in independent media, telling the truth. One of the last guys out there kind of keeping track of what's going on with the Fourth Estate. Allan Lengel, the publisher and editor of Deadline Detroit. We've joined with him today to talk a little bit about some of what's going on in the Democratic Party. We had a lot of big wigs in town this weekend to talk to the Democrats before their state endorsement convention. Allan has also been following the Taryn Asher case, and he has some thoughts on something that I'll be opining about in the Free Press, which is whether or not the Democratic Party has a problem with anti-Semitism. And there was quite a bit that happened on Sunday. Congresswoman Haley Stevens was almost drowned out by supporters of Abdul El-Sayed, who's running for Senate, as is Congresswoman Stevens. We'll get into whether or not that is something that is going to be used against the Democrats as they go forward. And we'll talk about all kinds of good stuff before we let you go. Marc's here, of course. He's back from vacation, so I think he'll be here for the next 51 weeks. We kind of give him one weekend off a year.
Of you.
Yeah, and then he spends it at a unlicensed medical facility in Puerto Rico.
I still have not received the hospital bill. Who knows if I ever will?
And getting interferon and other questionable drugs. Was it hydrochloric? Yeah, whatever.
Hydrocodone.
The one that keeps horses and presidents from getting COVID. So
Ivermectin?
Maybe that's it.
That's
I don't know.
ivermectin, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hydrochloroquine is what they tested
that's
originally.
The other one. Yeah. They're both fantastic and available only in third world countries. So, but perhaps covered by your health plan. We'll see what RFK Jr. does about that. And of course, we're brought to you. Oh my God, RFK's killing me.
It's a hard voice to do.
I know. I can't believe he does it all the time.
Well, he has a condition.
Oh, does he?
Nice of you to pick on his condition.
I thought
what a mean person you are.
I thought his condition was batshit crazy. There's no vaccine for that.
I mean, you can have multiple conditions, but...
Speaking of that, I remember Serge Kovaleski, who I was a reporter with at
I can't remember!
Washington Post. He went to New York Times, and I'm still friends with him, and he has a deformity in his hand, and Trump was mocking him. And then when he was confronted about it, he said, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't know that guy. And Serge wrote me and says, I was on a first-name basis with him when I worked at the New York Daily News.
Of course he was.
So,
if you worked at the New York Daily News in the 80s or 90s, you were on a first-name basis with Donald Trump or his PR agent. This is not Donald Trump calling. I want to tell you about a story with... Yeah, was it John Barron?
wasn't that his alias?
Is that where they came up with the name for Barron Trump, maybe?
Oh, I think it worked the other... I might have gone the other way. I don't know.
Oh, I don't... Well, who knows? Anyways, all of this is brought to you by Luke Nowacki and Pinnacle Wealth Strategies, who will help you come up with a plan for your future. In fact, just before the tax deadline, I opened a couple of Roth IRAs for Teresa and I with Luke and Nick and Zach. So great idea. It's a great idea. They will help you get going. We're also brought to you by DCFC. If you were at the big game last week, heartbreaker. They lost 2-1 to the Chicago Fire, the MLS team. I was there. It was a perfect night for soccer. Hope to see you some more at Keyworth this summer. We'll tell you what's coming up next for Le Rouge. The Caju Cafe is also supporting us again as we go into the summer. They're going to get those shows going outside in the beer garden, so keep an eye on their website for the latest. We'll tell you what's coming up this week. And, of course, from Caju to you, we're brought to you by our soulmates. Those are the folks who are kind enough to give us as little as $5 a month, who get to watch the show, get our free bonus episodes, free to them, that is, and have exclusive access to VIP events, which we will probably do another one this summer. We're working on it, so stand by. But thank you. We appreciate you guys coming back, because you keep us coming back every week, even when it's a day like today where I kind of wish I wasn't coming back, because I was up till 4 a.m. working on my latest column about the Democratic State Endorsement Convention, making some comparisons with the Republican Endorsement Convention, which happened last month, and diving into a topic that Allan's written about extensively at Deadline Detroit, which is, does the Michigan State Democratic Party have a Jewish problem? That's kind of ominous, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
What do you make of this, Allan?
Well, it's interesting, and I think the Democratic Party has been wrestling with the issue of Israel. Do we fund Israel? I mean, it became an incredibly contentious issue in 2024.
Probably cost Democrats the White House.
Right. In Dearborn, normally the, Arab Americans vote Democratic. They voted for Trump.
And Jill Stein, or they didn't vote at all.
Right, or didn't vote at all. And I remember in March of 2024, I was doing a piece for the Washington Post about how the Gaza war was impacting Ramadan. And I was at a mosque on Tyerman Road interviewing the imam, who was about 29 years old. He was Palestinian American. His parents, he was from New Jersey. His parents were from Palestine. And I asked him, I said, well, who are you going to vote for? And this was while Biden was still in the race. And he said, well, I look at it like it's a race between a guy who's already committed genocide and a guy who might commit genocide. And he says, I might vote for the guy who might commit genocide. So it's been, since the Gaza war, it's been, Israel has become a really, really hot topic there. And, and I think it's fine to have discussions about it and have differences. And you would hope the Democratic Party would have a big enough tent to accept people who are pro-Israel and anti-Israel and those in between. I mean, you may be for the existence of Israel, but you may not back Netanyahu and his policies. He has, my feeling, I cover that. I watched and read a lot about that area.
And you've been to Israel
And I've been
recently?
to Israel. I have, and just as full disclosure, I mean, look, my parents are Holocaust survivors. I have a lot of, my mother's side of the family after the Holocaust went to Israel. My mother and my father went to New York and then eventually Detroit. But so we have connections. My nephew is there. He has 5 children. So I, and I have friends there and stuff. But I don't like Trump. I don't agree with Netanyahu. I'm not a fan of Netanyahu. I mean, he's first of all, even before the war came, he was trying to dismantle democracy in the same way that we're seeing here, in some ways. But I think how it's played out now, and really one of the issues that I see is that the idea that you're against Israel, which is totally fine. I don't have any there's no issue there. You're against Netanyahu. You're against whatever. But what started to happen is that people have it's kind of the line, not for everybody, but for some, the lines have been blurred where you hate Israel, you hate Jews. And people say, no, I don't hate Zionists. I mean, I hate Zionists. I don't like Jews. Or vice versa.
All nuance has been destroyed.
The
same goes to if you're pro-Palestinian people, then you're pro-Hamas. It's
right.
Like, well, no.
And I'm pro-Palestinian people, but I'm not pro-Hamas.
No one's pro-Hamas. Well,
there
are some nuts.
There are people who are pro-Hamas, and so it's what happened is it spilled over into and it was ugly. Frankly, and I watched the video of Haley Stevens speaking, and she's been pro-Israel, and she's taken money from AIPAC, which is a powerful lobbying group that lobbies on behalf of Israel. That's her choice, and there are a lot of people who are supportive of that. There are a lot that are not.
Let me stop you there for
Yep.
a second, Alan,
Sure.
because we need to set this scene a little bit. And before we're done, I want to talk about Andy Beshear and what he had to say to Democrats, because I think
Because he was 100% correct.
Yeah, I think the Saturday night presidential hopefuls that came and spoke to the Democrats also tell us a little bit about whether Gretchen Whitmer may run for president. But before we get to that, on Sunday, Democratic Senate candidates got to speak to over 7,000 Democratic Party delegates who were assembled at Huntington Place. And they weren't on the ballot, but they were allowed to speak, to connect with Democrats, and also to make their pitch, because we'll choose which one of them is the Democratic nominee in the August primary. But El Sayed, who's a Muslim, who's been very critical of AIPAC, which is a pro-Israeli political action committee, spends tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to impact federal and sometimes, I think, local elections. Very pro-Palestinian. Also says, I love my Jewish brothers and sisters, just like I love my Palestinian brothers and sisters, but has been very critical of Israel's conduct in Gaza. When he spoke to the crowd, it was electric. People were cheering for it. I haven't seen that much energy in a convention hall in a long time. Right after he spoke, unfortunately for her, was Haley Stevens, the congresswoman from Oakland County, who has been very closely aligned with AIPAC, has taken a lot of money from AIPAC. And the boos were so loud, and she was razzed so vociferously that you could almost not hear her. And she had to restart her remarks because this was, I think, frankly, a hostile crowd. And there was another candidate running for, she's not Jewish, by the way, but she's so associated with AIPAC that when she was first elected to Congress, she beat a Jewish guy for the Democratic nomination. Andy Levin. Yep. So also being decided that day was whether Amir Maklid, who's Muslim and has posted some pro-Hezbollah comments on social media, which he then took down, whether he would be given a chance to run for Board of Regents for the University of Michigan. One of the incumbents, Jordan Acker, is Jewish, has been vocally pro-Israel.
He's had his house vandalized.
Had his house, his office vandalized. When his nominator spoke, because they introduce the candidate, or they make a pitch for the candidate, the person introducing him was booed so loudly that those of us there got the impression he cut his speech short just to get off the crowd. So that's a lot of background. But the point is, people who were critical of Israel, candidates who were Muslim, were shown tremendous support. And at least one candidate, Acker, who's Jewish, and one candidate closely associated with Israel, Stevens, were almost drowned out. And that left me and other people in the hall wondering, is there an anti-Semitic wave coming through the Democratic Party? Now, I have my take on that, which I share in my On Guard column, and we'll include a link to that online. But, Alan, you wrote about this extensively, and I think your conclusion is, yeah, there's a problem here.
I think it's interesting. People say Eli Sabat, who is Jewish, from Washington.
Who was greeted warmly, by the way.
Greeted warmly, but, Israel was not an issue with him, and he has sort of distanced himself from the Israeli issue, which is that, you don't have to embrace the Israeli issue, but I'll say that the majority of, and I would venture to say 90% of Jewish people are supportive of Israel. And so there's,
which doesn't mean that they don't want a two-state solution.
Which doesn't mean they embrace everything that's going on. It doesn't mean that they love Netanyahu. It doesn't, in the same way that you say you're an American. Does that mean you automatically love, everything Trump is doing, that you embrace his policies and stuff like that? So it's the same thing there. But I think what really struck me about and I think that struck some other Jewish people, and I read some other comments on Facebook, from Jewish people is that I think people are kind of, they felt like we're not welcome here. We're it's not, it's interesting. I was covering the No King's Day, and I was at Grand Circus Park, and I saw, as I was leaving, I saw somebody had a sign that said, and can we swear here?
Yeah.
A sign that said,
yeah.
It said, "Fuck Israel." And normally I wouldn't think twice about it, but, these days I feel like, with the anti-Semitism on the rise, with Jews being attacked, I feel like sometimes when I see that, it's really fuck the Jews and not just fuck Israel. And so I think it's been clouded. It's okay, it's okay to have differences at the party, but people are screaming. I watched the video of Haley Stevens, and people are screaming, "You suck!" And and this very hostile thing. It's like you're not allowed to be pro-Israel. It seemed like at the convention you're not allowed to be pro-Israel. And what does pro-Israel mean? It's like, do you back everything Netanyahu does? Do you back every war, all the stuff that's going on? Or do you believe in the existence of Israel in the same way that, look, Russia has invaded Ukraine? My sister was down in Florida back in January or February with a group of people, a group of friends, and they all get together from all around, and there were some Israelis there, and they were standing there, and someone came walking up on the sidewalk, and they said, "Hey, will you mind taking a picture of us with their phone?" And the person who asked had an accent, and she goes, "Where are you from?" And he goes, "Israel." She goes, "I'm not taking a picture of anyone from Israel."
Yeah.
So does that mean she's anti-Israel? Would they have done that? Look, the Russians have been decimating Ukraine. If a Russian person, Iranian people,
Well, let's get back to Michigan for a second.
Sorry.
No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
okay.
Yeah.
We're going around the world
digress here.
That's the thing when you publish your own newsletter. Nobody tells you it's too long. And my boss tells me the same. Your column's too long, except he gets to cut it. Haley Stevens being booed is not unprecedented. What was startling is it was Democrats booing Democrats. These are people, and she may be the most formidable opponent for El Sayed, so maybe it's the opponent of my favorite candidate is now my enemy. Mallory McMurrow, though, also has done very well in this primary, and she wasn't booed. Now, maybe it's just because she went before El Sayed, but Mark, you're younger than us. I imagine you know some more people who are little, not Generation X like we are. But one of the things I've noticed is progressives tend to be pro-Palestinian and often come off as anti-Israeli, and progressives tend to be Democratic.
Well, I also think
seen or heard this.
I think Democrats sometimes miss out on how perception plays, because if you're the way the anti-Israel or anti-Semitic expression comes out is things like "fuck Israel," let's graffiti Jordan Acker's place of work, let's go after his home. It's pretty out there, pretty outrageous stuff that no person would do, or most common people, normal people would not do. If there's an anti-Muslim incident out there, you just don't. I just feel like the attacks are very different. So the perception, you're talking about two voting blocks that are 3% and like 2.5% of this state. You got a lot of white Anglos out there that see this and see violence and go, fuck those people. And I don't think the Democrats understand that, or at least the anti-Israel people certainly don't understand that.
I think
and maybe that is maybe that's just the way young people respond, because they don't respect certain norms or property.
I'll say this, that I consider myself a progressive. A lot of my friends are progressive who are Jewish, and they're concerned. They were concerned about what happened. They want to. I think everybody, like I say, I can understand, people are anti-Israel or whatever, funding or, whatever.
Well, that's what El Sayed says. I'm not anti-Israeli. I just don't want the U.S. government to give money to foreign governments to wage war. He's like, I may be critical of Israel, but I'm not critical of Jews, and don't conflate the two.
He may, he may be able to, thread the needle that way, but there are others who it's more blurred. It's like a friend of mine who lives out in the Dearborn area was telling me, he said one day, he said, Allan, the people who say they hate Zionists and stuff, he goes, there's no difference here. He goes, he's Muslim, Lebanese. He says, there's no difference. He says, hate Zionists, hate Jews. He goes, there's little distinction here. He said, I told somebody I'm a big fan of the Las Vegas Raiders, and they said, you can't root for the Raiders. They have a Jewish owner.
Oh, Jesus.
And so we see that, where people say, yeah, I hate Israel and not the Jews, or I hate Zionists and stuff like that. And I think there has been a better defined distinction there. But I think the distinction is, I think the rage has just people have just gotten so angry that, there were people celebrating. It was hurtful that people were, what's going on in the West Bank and Gaza has always been screwed up. We need to get that resolved. There needs to be a two-state solution, but one where both sides, where we can have stable governments in Gaza and stable governments in the West Bank, where
if we just have a
sovereign.
resort there, right? If we have the
Yeah.
best resort, Atlantic City in the Middle East,
where there's sovereignty and ideally democracy. I was in Israel in 2022, and I was in Bethlehem, and there was a tour guide who is Christian, and he said, please go to the souvenir shops. They're run by the Christians here. He goes, the Christians are leaving here. And I raised my hand. I said, why are they leaving? And he said, I'll tell you later. So we were at Johnny's souvenir shop having a cup of tea. And I said, what's going on? And he says, well, the Christians don't feel welcome here anymore. They feel like, they're leaving. And I said, well, what about the Palestinian Authority? And he said, are you kidding? He says, they could care less. And he said, if it wasn't for Israel, there would be all-out war between Fatah, which is the West Bank, and Hamas. He said, and this was before, the Gaza war. So there's a lot of complications in the area. There's a lot of nuances and stuff like that. But that doesn't excuse. The Netanyahu administration they're racist. They're horrible.
Well, where this could be a problem for Democrats is we've already seen President Trump try and push a narrative that the elites and that Democrats are anti-Semitic. And when you have a convention where candidates that are closely aligned with Israel are booed, that allows Republicans to further that, and that really hurts Democrats. And I asked Democratic State Party Chairman Curtis Hertel about that, and he said, yeah, we don't have a problem, but I think whether they truly have a problem, there's certainly a perception there that could be problematic. But there's also, we're talking about nuance here and subtleties, and some of the things that we need to take a deeper look at this is the support for Macklin, who is Muslim and has been very critical of Israel. He was also supported by students because he defended students at the University of Michigan who were being prosecuted for their conduct at pro-Palestinian rallies when they spoke out against Gaza. So he does have some connection with students. And Marc, as a Wolverine, I think you would acknowledge that the student body, particularly young kids, tend to be a little more radical, and they're going to go with someone who looks like he's willing to, to take it to the man. And I think that probably describes a lot of young students. And Acker, while he has been very outspoken about his support for Israel and been very supportive of cracking down on some of these Gaza protests, just before the Friday before the convention, The Guardian published a story which they said was based on messages that Acker had exchanged with other people, commenting on the appearance and the sexual practices of a Democratic operative, and also commenting on a Jewish student at U of M. Now, timing's a big deal. And when that comes out before a big convention, when people are already spoiling for a fight.
The day
yeah,
of.
And it comes out that, oh, by the way, not only this guy, we don't really like him on some stuff. Now it turns out he may be a chauvinist pig. I think that also contributed to the hostility towards the Acker campaign for another term on the U of M Board of Regents. And his attorney said, this is unfounded and everything, but boy, it's never a good thing just before an election to have to tell people that horrible thing you read probably isn't true. That word doesn't spread as fast as the juicy stuff. So there's some other things going on here that may be contributing to this. But the bottom line is, coming out of Sunday, there are a lot of us scratching our heads and people like Allan writing that, hey, man, Democrats, you better wake up, because you're not looking really good coming out of this. And that's, for Democrats, that's a shame, because they had their largest gathering of delegates ever. There was a ton of energy in the hall, and they came out of there rip-roaring ready to fight, but there may be a few...
Where are these delegates? I mean, are these delegates from all across the state that showed up, or are they from Detroit or Ann Arbor or Lansing?
Yeah.
Like, where are they from?
So they're from all over the state, but because the convention is held here, and because these conventions tend to run long, like they thought they'd be done by 6, they were done by 10. If you're not booking a hotel room for Sunday night too, there's a real disincentive to go to something like this, because they never end on time. But what the Democrats do is they weight the delegates. So and I mean WEIGHT. Yeah. So if you came from Escanaba, your vote counts for more than somebody who came from Ecorse, because there's an acknowledgement that you came further. Fewer people from Escanaba will come there, but we want that northern voice to be counted. And it also provides an incentive for delegates from far away to take the trouble to come here without feeling like, well, there's only one of me, but there's 100 of them, so my vote really doesn't count. One of the shames is that Democrats don't release their vote totals or even the percentages of the candidates who won, so we don't know whether the races were close, and it's... Republicans released that, so it's a shame Democrats don't. And I made that point to Chairman Hertel, and he said, okay, that's our business. But
nice being transparent.
Yeah, but before we leave this topic, I want to talk a little bit about that the presidential candidates who did come to town. I think we had Kamala Harris. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, and was Cory Booker here too?
Cory Booker.
Okay. And let's focus for a minute on Beshear, because he said something that I think most of us over the age of 40 can really relate to, and it's about the language we use. We've been told since the era of political correctness was popular to watch your language, but he kind of delivered a little different message. What did you guys hear?
Well, I think essentially he was saying, stop saying, using all these terms like, unhoused when you're talking about homeless, or, other things. Food insecure.
What was the one about people in jail?
Yeah, it was like justice impacted or something, population.
Justice involved population. I've never heard that one before.
So that's jailbirds,
that
right?
means inmates. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Inmates.
Right.
And so I think people get annoyed by that. I remember.
It's their perception problem, man. It looks like you're an asshole that can't relate.
Right. You're trying to hide what you're talking about. It was like, it reminds me, this was 1987. I was in Duluth for the Detroit News. I was covering a story about a captain who disappeared on a ship in Lake Superior, and it went to Duluth. And so I'm interviewing, it's sort of the talk of the town. I'm interviewing a guy.
Ironically, his name was Edmund Fitzpatrick.
Exactly.
No? Okay, sorry.
So I was interviewing a guy at a clothing shop, because I was staying at the Holiday Inn, which was above a mall. And I went down and I was getting some clothes, and I started interviewing this guy. And I said, well, can I get your title? And he goes, associate. And I go, associate manager? He goes, no, associate. I go, associate salesperson? No, associate. And I was finally like, I just wrote down salesperson. We give these titles and these labels, and it's like if you say to somebody, oh, you're homeless, that's like, and it's like unhoused. It's like always, we're always, it's nice to make things sound better than they are, but we don't, after a while,
doesn't change the meaning.
Right, and we don't understand sometimes what it is. What is that? Some people might be, what does unhoused mean? Well, it's not that difficult.
Well,
I think my favorite is Latinx, which if you ask Hispanic people, they're like, I don't even know what that means. I'm like, but you're supposed to be them. It's like, it's not. It's the thing that exists in academia. And
when
only
you're
in
telling
academia.
people how they should be referred to, and they're like, what are you talking about? I think you've lost the plot.
100%.
Yeah, if somebody told me that I had
trying to make a metaphor here.
a cellular disorder.
Oh, you're fat.
And somebody told me what, and I asked the doctor, what's a cellular disorder? They say, well, it's cancer, but we thought cellular disorder sounded better. I'm like, I don't care what you call it.
It's still
fucking
cancer.
jack me up with the chemo, because changing the name don't fix the disease.
But do you guys think this will resonate? Do you think people will
Oh,
start
absolutely.
in this state?
Yes, because I think older people tend to vote more. I think it may alienate some progressives, but
No, I'm talking about, do you think the
Beshear.
candidates will talk about that? Like, will start talking normal?
A little bit more straight talking.
well, I think
it
one of the big
depends.
appeals of Trump is that he gave people permission by his own outrageous conduct to speak more as they're comfortable without feeling like they're going to be attacked. Now,
Some a little too comfortable.
well, that's the other thing. Is it's like there's some stuff that maybe you should keep to yourself, and there's certain parts of people's body you shouldn't grab and brag about. But
the real bad stuff. I mean, there's always going to be, as long as you work for someone, there's going to be consequences. But no one's going to get fired for saying homeless instead of unhoused.
I wrote a column a couple of years ago where I described the denizens of the former Kennedy Square, which is where City Hall used to be in the heart of downtown. It became sort of a public meeting place. And I said it was mainly populated before it became Campus Martius with pigeons and hobos. And some editor changed it to unhoused persons. And I'm like, well, hobos doesn't sound that bad. But if we're striving for accuracy here, we don't know whether they were housed in the first place. So if we don't know whether you were housed, how can you be unhoused? And so sometimes we strain so hard to find language that's innocuous that we actually make the communication less valuable.
And honestly, I mean, what's the population that's going to get upset about hobos versus
some of those hobos
right?
might have woken up under the newspaper and read that and said, hey, what are you calling a hobo?
I had, an interesting, when I was at the Washington Post.
Hobos don't read newspapers anymore.
When I was at the Washington Post, I came across this issue of Black and African American, referring to that. And I was doing a story about Denny's. There was a new Denny's, and it was actually beautiful inside. And it was opening across the river where there were no sit-down family restaurants. And that was part of the story. I went on a Sunday, and the church crowd was there, and everyone was decked out in these beautiful hats and suits. And I was hopping from table to table, and I was sitting down with this bishop, and I don't know if it was his girlfriend or his wife, and I said, well, how do you like the new Denny's? And he goes, it's great. And he says, it's just too bad. He says, it's great. We have a place to come after church now. He says, it's just too bad it's not Black owned. And I said, it is Black owned. And he says, no, it's not. And I said, yeah. I said, I interviewed the guy yesterday. He's from Nigeria. And he goes, well, he's not Black. and so I was puzzled. I went back to the newsroom, and I spoke to some Black friends, the reporters, and I said, what's up with that? I said, obviously this Nigerian guy is Black. And they said a lot of American Blacks, they don't consider them Black because they don't relate. And there's a tension there between some of the Africans, in the community in D.C. there, who are, who look down upon some of the Americans. And so there's a tension there and stuff. And after that, I said, well, how can I use African American where a lot of Blacks don't relate to an African as being,
As being black?
As being black. And so
I'm afraid I'm not the guy to help you on that.
Yeah, so it was an eye opener for me, and I didn't understand it. But I've talked to some black people about the relationship American blacks have with Africans, who have come here, and so that's.
Yeah, well, it's complicated. I know a woman, a friend of mine from the Virgin Islands. She's like, I'm black. I'm not African American. I'm from the Virgin Islands, and I'm like, you tell me. You tell me what you want to be, because I'm not here.
If I were to call you a European American, would you be like, I'm not from Europe? Because you're not. No, you're different.
Well, I'm a European.
You probably would. So you probably embrace it.
I am an Irish citizen now.
If
so
someone
I guess,
said that to me, I'd be like, well, yeah, my lineage is, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it's a point of pride for people, and I think kind of the best rule is, when I first came to the Free Press, Joe Swickard said, so I see your bylines, ML, but people call you Mike. What you want it to be? I said, you call me whatever you want. He's like, sure. No, you decide what you're going to be called, and that's what I'll call you. And then, so we resolved that. I think that's a pretty good policy. And I think in journalism, we tend to ask people, what are you? And we go with that. So, but I do think the he, him, she, her, they, them has confused and confounded and intimidated and scared a lot of people who don't understand it and are afraid they're going to offend somebody.
Well, I think that issue got just a little ridiculous, because just the grammar of being they, them when you're a singular person really rubbed people the wrong way. But if someone came up and was like, I'm transitioning, call me he now, okay, what do I care? I'll do my best. If I get it wrong, though, don't be mad that I got it wrong. And I think that's kind of where it jumped, because when this whole dead pronoun thing or dead name, it's like, well, I'm trying my best. I mean, can you just accept that we're trying?
I think that's the key. You have to be sincere that you're trying to refer to people the way they wish to be referred, and when you get it wrong, that they show you a little grace. But I do think
being normal, being a human.
Beshear has got he's on the right track here, and I think this is a message that's going to resonate. And of all the things that came out of all these presidential hopefuls who spoke this weekend, that's the one that I think really stuck in my mind from what I've heard. So,
I think I'm curious what you guys think about Kamala even thinking about running again.
I think it's absurd. For her to try to run again.
She inherited a pretty tough hand, but I was going to say, you don't see a lot of losers run for president again and win. But then again, Donald Trump is serving his second or third term, depending on what you believe, and perhaps depending on what you believe, he wasn't a loser. So I don't know.
I think when you lose, you should kind of just disappear. You should just go away, because nobody. It's almost just you've been rebuked. Nobody wants to hear from you. And I'm not just saying Kamala. I'm talking about even when Hillary lost, she should have disappeared, right?
Not necessarily.
Oh, I just think it's just a stain that you don't want to have.
Well, when you lose,
traditionally you kind of retire, right? You
sure.
You step back and you kind of let these other guys have their chance. But I think for Harris, if she wants to run, she should run, and I think voters will render their verdict rather quickly. I don't think she's going to be happy with what happens, and I also don't think she's going to be able to raise another $1 billion.
Sure, probably not. The problem is
she's still paying off the last
these primaries, and I think you might see it here in Michigan, because Abdul El-Sayed he's really caught up to McMorrow. I mean, they're pretty much tied in a lot of polls.
That's what one recent poll says.
But when you look at head-to-head versus, I think they put him up against Mike Rogers, who's leading on the Republican side, he's pretty much tied, and she wins, I think, by like 5%, because these primaries pick people that are on the extreme, and then the general independents go, I don't want someone like that. I want someone more moderate. And I think that's a problem. I think the Democrats are going to have a problem with Attorney General along the same lines, because they're going to see what's his name, Eli
Savitt,
yes.
and Doug Lloyd,
soft on crime, no cash bails, as opposed to Karen McDonald, who lost, who probably one of the biggest cases in this state with the Crumblies.
Yeah, that was a big upset, and one of the problems that you see is people who appeal to their own party may not appeal to the broader electorate, and whether or not Democrats and Republicans nominated or endorsed the right candidates for nomination, we'll know in November. Republicans seem to move more towards the middle of the road. They had been favoring extremists. Mm-hmm. Democrats endorsed candidates who are more progressive. I wouldn't say they're extreme, but definitely leaning to the left more than the Republican candidates are leaning to the right. And if you're registered to vote, and we hope you are, you'll get to make that decision. You'll get my take on all this in the Free Press. And, of course, Allan's column is already up at Deadline Detroit. We will include a link to that on our website, which is
glad
ML
Deadline's
Soul
still
Detroit.
going.
Oh,
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
This is
reading.
12 years now, 15
We
years?
started in 2012, April.
So now I got to do the math. Okay, so this is your 14th anniversary.
Yes.
Wow. So check out Deadline Detroit. Allan aggregates a lot of really important news, but he also has some outstanding people who write exclusively for Deadline Detroit. And, of course, his take on stuff is based on, I don't want to age him, but more than 40 years experience covering the news in Detroit, Washington, D.C., knowing it from the inside, from the outside, and fearlessly giving you his take on what's going on like nobody else in town, because you know what? He can't be fired. He's the boss.
Well, I think you guys were the first.
You want to talk about freedom of the press when you control them.
Recently, weren't you
That's it.
the first to have the Taryn Asher story?
Yes.
I believe, yeah.
That's
So,
right.
Oh, yeah,
they're still breaking stuff, before other people.
So there are two things I said we're going to talk about. I want to do it really quickly before we move on. Governor Whitmer, I don't think, is running for president. She said she's not going to. Then she said, well, you kind of leave things up. I'm like, what a politician, right? But I think
annoying.
if you're truly running for president, you're doing the kind of things that Beshear and Booker and Kamala Harris are doing, which is addressing state party gatherings throughout the country. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, maybe we really don't know what the hell she's doing. And because we don't have the Freedom of Information Act applying to the governor's office, we can't track her travel to see where she is going. But she's certainly not popping up in news accounts in Kentucky in the same way that Beshear's popping up in news accounts in Michigan, in which she is acting like a presidential candidate. And I have a friend who's a Democratic insider who thinks maybe she's just positioning herself for a cabinet post.
Yeah.
And I think she could do the Granholm thing, right?
VP.
Yeah, or VP. That could be. I don't know. She's going to have to make up a story about Haitians eating dogs. So, and Allan, with Taryn Asher, can you real quickly tell us what you've been reporting on that?
Taryn Asher, I think her last day at Fox 2 was last November during the election. I think what I was told, I think she got into some shouting things, and they told her to pack up and go. I think very briefly she was suspended, and then she was fired, and then they were very quiet about it. And so, after a while, I think maybe in January, I wrote about, where's Taryn Asher? And I wrote that, at the time that she was suspended, but apparently I think what had happened was she was fired, but they continued to try to push through her lawyers to try to get her back on the air.
But I think her image was still appearing in Fox 2 promos,
and still may
right?
be. I mean, the last time I checked, her picture was still on the website.
Yeah. So she has filed something with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission,
Right.
which you have to do before you can sue your employer.
Right.
You have to have the EEOC review your case, and they won't tell you whether you're going to win or lose, but they will give you permission to file a lawsuit in federal court if you go that way. And if you don't do that, a federal judge will say, go to the EEOC. That process can take a year or more. So it's going to be quite a while, I think, before we see what her beef is precisely. But in the meantime, Allan's been following it and breaking news on it, and we'll keep watching for that at Deadline Detroit. Probably not going to keep watching for her on Fox 2, but she may not be tailing the news, but she's making the news.
Right. She claims when the new management came that she was treated differently than her male counterpart, that they had promised her certain things that they didn't deliver on. So I think... Yeah, she's going to go the route of suing unless they decide, let's let her back on. But I think they've dug themselves in so deep, I don't see them.
There's no way.
I could see them doing a settlement at some point. They would say, okay, here's some money to go away. But to bring her back on, I think it's a little toxic at this point,
Yeah, I mean, maybe that seems like an unlikely resolution. But if there's anybody who could work with someone without egos being an issue, I think it would be Roop Raj, who was her partner, because he's a pretty sincere news guy. And, I mean, I've known Roop for, probably almost 15 years. And in full disclosure, he's had me on the Pulse recently, but that doesn't influence me.
Right.
But he's always been a pretty grounded guy, and he seems like the kind of guy who, hey, if we need to bring Taryn back to make it work, I don't see him saying, "There's only one chair on the set now." If he's really like that, he's fooled me, and I've seen a lot of fakers. So
the fear for Taryn is that, I mean, how many times have we seen people sue in media their employer and never be heard of again because everyone's like, I'm not touching that person. I mean, there's other ways she can make revenue with social media and stuff now, like Jason Carr did. But I just, when you file these suits, unfortunately, it's kind of just put a mark on yourself.
I mean, we've had.
How about this? Taryn Asher, DoorDasher.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know.
All right.
We'll see.
Not take advice from you.
We've seen a lot of the.
Hey,
media.
I've done pretty good in my post employment. I keep bouncing from news organization to news organization
because you haven't sued.
And
we've seen a lot of
not as
people.
far as anybody knows.
We see a lot of people from TV leaving under questionable circumstances, and
TV careers rarely end gracefully.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we see, people have to reinvent themselves, but it's tough getting back in the media if you leave under a cloud, and there's, and I think, who knows? I mean, her husband went over to DIV, and then he left under,
Yeah, no, it was there was no farewell party, but wow. To keep up with this, certainly Julie Hines at the Detroit Free Press is reporting about this, but Allan's breaking a lot of the news, so watch for the latest at DeadlineDetroit.com. Allan Lengel, thanks for coming on, and
thanks for having me.
Happy upcoming 14th anniversary.
Hey.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And if you're looking towards the future, I mean, this is actually my 4th anniversary at the Free Press, and my 6th time back at the Free Press. You do the math, but I'm planning for the future because I don't know if I got another stop left in me. Maybe you want to be a little smarter than Kathy Ireland, who's never spoken to Luke Nowacki. Actually, now that I think about it, every celebrity that has gone broke has one thing in common. They've never spoken to Luke Nowacki. I suggest you don't take that chance. Call or text Luke Nowacki at 248-663-4748. That's 248-663-4748. Who knows? Maybe you can find a way to get your own Champions Club tickets so that you're not trying to weasel them from Drew like some people we know. And no matter what you're doing, no matter how you get your Tigers tickets or what celebrities you know or don't know, when you call Luke, he'll make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc. member FINRA-SIPC.
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent.
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc.
Before we get to our Geek of the Week, I want to tell you a little bit about what's coming up at Keyworth in Hamtramck. Keyworth Stadium, home of Le Rouge, Detroit City Football Club. They will be playing Louisville City FC on May 2nd at 6 p.m. at Keyworth. This is going to be broadcast nationally on the CBS Sports Network. Yes, Le Rouge is big news. Heartbreaking loss to the Chicago Fire last week. But Louisville's pretty good, and so are our boys. So you're going to want to check them out at Keyworth. By the way, head coach Danny Dicchio, who we're trying to get on the show, has signed an extension keeping him in charge of the team through 2027 with an option for 2028. And the USL Women's League is starting on May 16th at Keyworth. Keep an eye on that. And if you missed last week's show, we had Stephen Carroll on. He was a great guest talking about the soccer tournament, which is a men's and women's combined team that plays in North Carolina, and the winning team takes home $1 million. It's a new concept. It's the first time DCFC is participating in it. Check out last week's show for more on that. It sounds pretty exciting. It sounds pretty groovy, and we'll have more news on that as it becomes available. To get tickets, go to DebtCityFC.com. That's DETCITYFC.com. And if you run into anybody from Le Rouge, tell them ML said hey.
Oh man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek?
or we're turning into cool guys.
Mark, Saturday, you put your sunscreen on, got your popcorn, got your seat cushion, went to the big house to watch the spring football game.
Absolutely not. No, I had an 8-year-old birthday party instead, which was far more enjoyable.
Probably more contact, too.
That's what I was going to say. The Geek of the Week should be all college football spring games because they are just an exercise in nothing. I don't know what people can really – I know there's certain things you can see. Like you can still see Underwood's mechanics are terrible, not any better. You can see Tommy Carr can actually play football pretty well. I mean, the true freshman. But other than that, it's such a waste of time. And frankly, I think it's an embarrassment to see the stadium that empty because no one goes to these things because they're not a real game. It's not even a glorified, it's not even a real practice. And it's not just a Michigan problem. You see this with a lot of schools, and it used to be you could get, some places could get 80,000 people in there. Like Virginia Tech had a lot of fans there, which I think
they got a new coach, right?
They have a new coach.
So does Michigan, and so does Michigan State.
Yeah. I mean, the weather was nicer down there too. But
do you think it would have helped if you gave away some free Coke? A liter of Coke, the Dave Brandon.
I got the Dave Brandon joke.
Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
That's fine. I mean,
very proud of myself.
Yeah, really good one.
Tommy's like, there he goes again.
I don't know.
Sorry, T-Bone.
I don't know why they have to do it. I don't understand why they want to do it. It just seems like a lot of work for very little payoff, and frankly, it looks like an embarrassment.
You know what I learned from Michigan State's thing? What thud tackling is.
Where you don't really quite wrap, you just kind of it's not touch, but
it's actually not tackling.
No,
it's
like
frankly,
tap.
when I learned what it means, it turns out I've known what it is all along because that's what we did for 12 games last season. Thud tackling. You barely touch somebody. You don't knock them down except during the regular season.
So are you with me?
They ended up in the end zone.
I like that we actually maybe agree on a football topic.
Yeah, but I do think that Michigan spring practice should have an asterisk on it.
Why?
I think
how many schools had to vacate wins in the Big Ten?
So my Geek of the Week was going to be the NCAA because they vacate victories for Iowa and then Michigan State, but we have a team that basically cheated their way to a national championship and they don't have to vacate any wins.
No, well, we didn't use illegal players. You guys did.
But I was trying to keep it.
Michigan had no illegal players.
On a high
cheat.
High level there.
Yeah, advanced scouting. What a cheat.
Okay, I'll meet you in the tunnel. Fellhauer.
The new one that they're building.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
See you again.
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
Just swipe your passcode. Maybe it'll work this time. I never have this luck at hotels, but swipe that passcode and enter room 7609 where we try and bring you great music. And if we can't bring you great music, we want to bring you great stories. And this is brought to you by the Caju Cafe. The pride of the East Side. We'll always find good music, good food, and good times. Here's what's coming up this week. On Tuesday, Gabe Gonzilla and friends are performing. Wednesday, it's karaoke. Thursday, Jazz Jam with the Bill Meyer Group. Friday, Super Crunch, which they're there a lot. You know them. You love them. They're the Grateful Dead tribute band. Revival Music of the Allman Brothers will be there on Saturday. Sunday, Planet D No Nay, or maybe Planet D No Net. Go there for yourself and find out. And Monday, Tasha Owens and the Stable Dudes Open Jam is there, as well as Muscle Madness. All you can eat mussels. And you're like, how many mussels can I eat? Guess what? It turns out there's like 24 different ways to prepare mussels. That's what you get at a Belgian restaurant, folks. The other thing you get is feather bowling, a Belgian endeavor that you'll only find, I think, in Bruges and on Caju in Detroit. So check out the Caju Cafe. And they make room 7609 possible because they're all about music, as is Mr. Magoo, who says, and this is ponderous, Mark, ponderous.
Oh, boy.
It's your old pal, Mr. Magoo, with another suggestion for room 7609. Recently, you booked rooms for both the Pogues and Morrissey, which reminded me of Kirsty MacColl and her song, Walking Down Madison. I know you like the story behind the story, and I sure do. And this one sadly ends with the Erica Erickson-worthy true crime story, so here goes. Can I get the picture up? Sorry, that's Casey. Kirsty MacColl was a UK pop singer whose career got derailed early when her record company went into bankruptcy, the legalities of which prevented her from releasing music on her own. The issue took several years to resolve, but in the interim, she became an in-demand backing vocalist. In addition to working with the Pogues, she also worked with such notable artists as the Rolling Stones, the Talking Heads, Simple Minds, the band, not Sean and Mark, I kid, and, wait for it, the Smiths. That final pairing led to her most successful song. Shortly before leaving the Smiths, Johnny Marr wrote some music for a solo project that he soon abandoned. And in fact, he didn't do anything solo for a long time. Thank God he did, because he's awesome. He gave the music to Kirsty, who wrote lyrics for one of the tracks, which were inspired by a trip she took to New York City, where she witnessed the disparity between wealth and poverty while walking down Madison Avenue. Marr played guitar and synthesizer on the song, and a rapper, Anif Cousins, added a hip-hop verse. Unfortunately, Kirsty's story ended tragically in December 2000 while on holiday in Cozumel with her 2 young sons. She was killed while scuba diving when a boat struck her, nearly cutting her in 2.
Oh.
Yeah. The boat that sped through the air reserve from swimming was owned by a Mexican supermarket magnate and, according to witnesses, was piloted by his brother, the chain's president. And while he initially admitted to it, a few days later, a poor deckhand went to the police and confessed to having been behind the wheel. The deckhand was convicted of the crime and given a 3-year suspended sentence. What? Avoiding prison by simply paying a fine of about $90, which I think is 9 million pesos. And punitive damages. So there's something of about $2,000 to Kirsty's family.
I have a feeling he didn't pay it.
The amount was based on annual income, which fueled speculation that he had been bribed to take the
someone
fall.
else probably gave it to him.
So clearly his annual income, not hers. Outraged, Kirsty's family started the Justice for Kirsty campaign in a quest for the truth. The effort initially got stonewalled, but gained some traction after Bono spoke about the incident during a U2 concert in Mexico. He said,
"Of course he did.
Kirsty MacColl was married." And while the campaign succeeded in getting some things changed, or as Bono would say, some things changed, as Mark well knows, the effort ultimately fell short as wealth, power, and corruption proved to be too much for justice to overcome. R.I.P. Kirsty. Magoo out! In the music video, Kirsty is seen gesturing a sign that reads Electric Ladyland, which is the name of the LP. The title was a pun, an homage to Jimi Hendrix's album, Electric Ladyland, and his famed New York studio, Electric Ladyland, where her LP was recorded.
Walking down Madison, I swear I never had a gun. No one ever shot no one, I was only having fun. Walking down Madison, swear I never had a gun. I was philosophizing, some checking out the bums. See, you give them your nickels, your pennies and dimes, but you can't give them up in these mercenary times. Oh no. And you feel real guilty about the coat on your back and the sandwich you had. Oh no. From an uptown apartment to a night on the A train, it's not that far. From the sharks in the penthouse to the rats in the basement, it's not that far. To the bag lady frozen asleep in the park, oh no, it's not that far.
Would you like to see some more?
I can show you if you'd like to. Walking down Madison, I swear I never had a gun. No one ever shot no one, wouldn't do it just for fun. Walking down Madison, trying to keep my head screwed on. I was philosophizing, some checking out the nuns. When you get to the corner, don't look at those freaks. Keep your head down low and stay quick on your feet. Oh yeah. The beaming boy from Harlem with the Air Force coat. The ones who died, the ones who tried, the ones that sit and gloat. From an uptown apartment to a night on the A train, basement. It's not that far to the bag lady frozen asleep on the church steps. It's not that far.
Would you like to see some more?
I can show you if you'd like to.
Within every city and town there's a Madison. Frozen lights for whom nothing's happening. Hungry children in a mother's dilemma. Dumpster diving to feed a baby Amber. So you walk on by like it doesn't affect you. The held out hand that you pay no respect to. Nickels and dimes won't even buy your guilt. Another wine or death burned to death in its book. It's a cardboard city, newspaper metropolis. This isn't kind of cold fall. Keep on top, but it's the authorities come. Patching up for display. Did they solve the problem? No, they move them away. Burn the vicious circle of no fix the bowl. The social won't pay them the money they owe. When you got no money, you can't pay the rent. Hypothermia kills cause the system is bent.
From an uptown apartment to a night on the A train, it's not that far. From the shops in the penthouse to the rats in the basement, it's not that far to the bag lady frozen asleep in the park. Oh no, it's not that far.
Hey, bro, you wanna see some more?
I can show you if you'd like to. From an uptown apartment to a night on the A train, it's not that far. From the shops in the penthouse to the rats in the basement, it's not that far to the bag lady frozen asleep on the church stairs.
The NCAA is not the only thing, Mark and I. Well, I guess we both agree that we hate it for different reasons. We disagree on this song. I have always loved this song. I'm a huge Kirsty MacColl fan, and her husband, her former husband, Steve Lillywhite, is one of the premier new wave producers of all time. He produced Morrissey, The Killers. Now, here's a blemish on his record: the Dave Matthews Band, and Fish, and Counting Crows. What happened? Everybody makes a few mistakes, but he did the Rolling Stones, Pogues, of course, U2, David Byrne, the Talking Heads. There's one for you, Shawnee. Sean, by the way, is not here. He's having a root canal, which is normally how we feel.
Can only be done on Tuesdays, I guess.
When he is here. He produced Susie and the Banshees, XTC, Simple Minds, Ultravox, the Psychedelic Furs. What a power couple they were. But great song. And, of course, terrific story. Magoo, you never let us down. And not just with your amazing graphics, but just a terrific song, a terrific artist. Gone too soon. Gone too soon.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why this is my favorite part of the show. And I know people say they don't like it, but they like it because it's at least 3 minutes where I won't be talking. So there's that. But please send us your songs and, of course, your great stories to mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. And if you're a soulmate, you get to watch the video just like you get to watch the whole show. I'm wondering if any...
I apologize because that video sucked too. Just saying.
So I like the video too. But
it's because you're stuck in the 80s.
I'm wondering if any keen-eyed soulmates can tell me who was playing guitar. Somebody in the background was playing a Fender Mustang, which is the axe of choice for Johnny Marr, who wrote the tune, but I don't think that was Johnny in the video. I'm wondering if anybody knows who it is.
Oh, you don't know?
No, it didn't look like him, but I recognize, I recognize the guitar right away. Then I look up and he's already out of the shot. But for a Johnny Marr song, it was not a really guitar heavy tune, although there's that little doodle 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 doo riff in there that's kind of Marr-esque. But what a great! I could talk about this all day and probably would if Mark wasn't giving me that look.
Awful.
So thanks. Please,
It was bad.
Please keep the suggestions coming, and we'll continue to debate the merits. And with Sean, he'll go pee. This is where we should thank our soulmates. Now, people see some sponsors coming back to the show, which is great. I've been telling you, we've been living on bread and water for a long time, so this is helping. But we still would love you to become a supporter of our show by joining our Patreon group, The Soulmates. That gives you access to our monthly bonus episode, which is worth $5 a month on its own, if you ask me. We don't have any new soulmates this month, this week, and we don't have any one-time donors. Although I am already hoarding the money Miguel sent me to go buy a pint next week almost. Oh, I can't wait. Can't wait. 2 weeks. But you can sign up at our website, mlsoulofdetroit.com, or go to Patreon and look for ML Soul of Detroit. Super easy to do. We also love getting your feedback at mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. We don't have any this week, but I know next week you'll make up for it. So it's been great having Allan here. Pretty big topic, hopefully not too heavy, but this is the kind of thing that our next election is going to hinge on, and I think we're all looking towards the 2026 midterms, wondering which way this country's going to go. And it's a big one. They're all big, but this one is monumental. Marc, thanks for guiding us through these treacherous waters. If only you'd been driving that boat, we might have more Kirsty McCall music. So.
Yeah, that's a great note to end on.
Oh, was it? Okay,
yeah,
sorry about that.
yeah.
Well, in that case, we should probably turn to Cyrus to take us out. There he goes.
Wait, say it again.
In that case, we should probably turn to Cyrus.
I only have two hands. Go ahead.
Take us out, Wiki.
Can you dig that?
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Next week, we'll be with you at the same time, although geography and year will change. The place? Pimlico, England. The year, 1879. My report? On the shockingly peaceful passing of Thomas Edwin Bartlett, greengrocer. Thank you. Good night.